identical, and they say they did that because they wanted to show solidarity, that they're all on the same page in terms of how they're feeling and what they think is wrong here. Now, those include the Women of Color Legal Alliance of Windsor, the Middle Eastern Law Students Association, the Women and the Law, and the Palestinian Solidarity Group. Now, let's have a look at what they're saying in some of those statements that they posted all over social media. They say in part, Dr. Gordon's statement makes no explicit mention of anti-Black discrimination. In fact, not even once is the word Black used in the wording of that statement. And the groups go on to say Dr. Gordon's words do not address the multiple recent instances of anti-Black racism that have occurred on UWindsor campus. And they're also making allegations that the university excessively polices Black individuals on campus as well, Chris. And many of these groups, as we saw, are from the University of Windsor's law school. And just last year, a diversity survey was sent out just to give you a sense of how diverse that particular law school is. About half of them are either a racial or ethnic background that isn't Caucasian. So half of them are white, half of them are not. So you can see it's a very diverse group of people, and that's in part why so many of these groups are speaking out on this topic. Now, we did reach out to the University of Windsor's president on this following the backlash that came after his statement. They declined an interview with us, emailing us in part a statement, and I'll read some of that to you now. They say they understand the significant concerns raised by students in these posts, and they say they're working on initiatives to better deal with anti-Black racism, and they say an announcement will be coming shortly, but again, Chris, we don't know timelines on when that will be.
Thanks, Jason. The CBC's Jason Vio live from the campus tonight. We turn now to the U.S., where there's been a major development in the murder case that's caused protests across the country and beyond. The state of Minnesota has elevated charges against the police officer accused of killing George Floyd. He is now charged with second-degree murder, in addition to third-degree murder and manslaughter. The three other officers who stood by while Floyd died have now also been charged with aiding and abetting murder. The CBC's Susan Ormiston has more from the scene of Floyd's death in Minneapolis.
This is what the family and many people around the state had been calling for, that all four of those officers be held accountable, be charged, and face a court. You can hear them saying, all four, I can't breathe, those rallying cries which have rung out across this state and over much of America in the past week. This takes this case another step forward to the justice system now. The Attorney General has warned that prosecuting and convicting police officers is never easy. Now begins a long trail of evidence and prosecution in court. The timing of this is quite interesting, as that there will be a series of memorials for George Floyd starting tomorrow here in Minneapolis, and his funeral is Tuesday in Houston, Texas. And the family had been asking that this happen before those memorials started. This morning, the lawyer for the family said they believe Floyd was tortured in those last 8 minutes and 46 seconds of his life. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Minneapolis.
Now, word of the new charges has not stopped demonstrations against racial injustice in America. In fact, protesters across the country say they're not going to let up until the officers are convicted and real change takes place. So in Washington, police and the National Guard continue to brace for the worst. Katie Simpson reports.
Security around the White House has been noticeably increased. Officers in riot gear are now blocking all of the streets around Lafayette Square, the site of the most intense protests for the past 6 days. It comes as Defense Secretary Mark Esper suggests the president's threats aimed at demonstrators have gone too far.
The option to use active duty forces in a law enforcement role should only be used as a matter of last resort, and only in the most urgent and dire of situations. We are not in one of those situations now. I do not support invoking the Insurrection Act.
Davis, is he going this way?
Donald Trump had warned that he was preparing to send the military to states dealing with violent demonstrations, though no governors have publicly asked for that kind of help. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama has spoken out publicly for the first time since the death of George Floyd. He was taking part in a virtual town hall on law enforcement. Obama called for some specific policy changes to address systemic racism, particularly at the local level. He also encouraged young people to maintain the momentum towards change through both voting and protests.
This is not a either or. This is a both and. To bring about real change, we both have to highlight a problem and make people in power uncomfortable, but we also have to translate that into practical solutions and laws that can be implemented and we can monitor and make sure we're following up on.
Locally now, a former Windsor police officer is facing a sexual assault charge. The alleged incident happened 4 years ago, but only came to light last month. That's when the Major Crimes Branch launched an investigation. The 54-year-old officer was off duty at the time of the alleged assault, and police say the officer and the victim were known to each other. The man worked for Windsor Police from 1987 up until 2017. This follows 2 other incidents of Windsor police officers being charged with assault in the last 2 months. Now, like all tourism businesses, Essex County wineries are feeling squeezed by COVID-19. This is usually their busiest time of the year, but with most people staying home and the border closed to tourists, vineyards are finding other ways to keep their wine flowing. Stacey Janzer has more.
I like big reds and I cannot lie.
Wineries like Crew have rushed to find inventive ways to engage with their customers. Michelle Turnbull started posting videos online to promote their wine.
So we started doing actually Wine Wednesday video tastings on our Facebook page and putting together little wine country packages for people so they could have a couple bottles of wine, some cheese, a condiment or some sort of locally made item, and then baguette.
Keeping things as local as they can. Crew also has a new facility, but it's still currently off limits. They're working on their plans to make the opening safe once they're allowed to.
So we're going to think really hard about how we want traffic flow to go. One thing we will probably do is have tastings limited to smaller groups of people by reservation only, which in my opinion actually makes it a nicer experience for the consumer.
Down the road at North 42, customers can purchase wines at the front desk, and their bistro is available for pre-orders Thursday through Sunday.
We're, social or physical distancing, and we've got it marked out which way to walk, and even into the lavender store if you want to pick up some other items in the winery that are more retail related, not just wine. And the wines we've reorganized that you don't pick them up yourself. You basically just ask for what you want, and we get them for you from the back.
Most wineries at this point are making wine sales available online with delivery or curbside pickup, and they're relying on local customers now more than ever. In the meantime, the federal government is reallocating $30 million meant to attract foreign visitors to local marketing. The government is also setting aside around $40 million so tourism agencies in Ontario and Western Canada can adapt their operations. But there is no decision on how much local tourism organizations will receive. Stacey Janzer, CBC News, Harrow.
Every year, paramedics gather from around the province to honor their fallen. It's with a bike ride from Toronto to Ottawa. This year, it's a smaller ride because of COVID-19. So paramedics from different areas, they're doing one leg in the journey and then handing off a memorial bell from one group to another. Today, the bell arrived in Windsor.
We're trying to take the monumental bell from the southernmost part of Ontario, which is we're at the Point Pelee, and we're trying to bring it to every service from here up to Timmins, Ontario.
51 names are engraved on that bell's base, representing civilian and military paramedics. Today's ride finishes at the Jefferson Road Station in Windsor, and then they'll start from there again tomorrow morning to eventually hand the bell off to Chatham-Kent's EMS, so the bell can continue its journey. Windsor Essex EMS raised $4,000 last year towards a permanent memorial on Parliament Hill. Stay with us. When we come back, Colette Kennedy has our full weather forecast. Ford government is rejecting calls to make the list of long-term care homes most affected by COVID-19 public. The Premier says it's so inspections will be a surprise for homes. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the story.
Once the deaths begin mounting in long-term care homes, it becomes clear which ones are the worst hit by COVID-19. Until then, other than reports of outbreaks, the public doesn't really know what's happening inside. But the government does. The province classes the most vulnerable long-term care homes as red and flags others of concern as yellow. For weeks, people with loved ones in long-term care homes have asked that the color-coded list be made public. The government has refused. The justification has been because the status of homes shifts quickly.
Hold your heart.
Whether it's yellow to red or red to yellow, there is a dynamic nature to this list. It would not be fair to homes if we were to put out a list that was erroneous in terms of the immediate change that occurs in these homes.
Today, a new rationale for keeping the list secret, so that inspections are a surprise.
We're doing surprise visits to all the long-term care homes. And, this gives us an opportunity, no matter if it's yellow or red, because those are our priorities, to go in there.
Quebec classes long-term care homes affected by COVID-19 as red, orange, or yellow. That province has made its list public since mid-April. Not so for Ontario.
It is really important that we be able to do those sort of surprise audits or inspections to make sure that we can understand what the state of affairs actually is in a long-term care home whenever we do go in.
I just think that's balderdash. I mean, there's just no way that holds any water. Those homes know darn well that they're in the red category. They know darn well that they're in the yellow category. And unfortunately, the only people who don't know are the people who have loved ones that are living in long-term care, and that's just not right.
As of today, there are still COVID-19 outbreaks at 94 long-term care homes in Ontario. Nearly 1,700 residents have died. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
And joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, a little windy out there today, and when my hair is this long, it's starting to affect me.
We like that, Chris. I like to see that. Keeps it real for us all, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that breeze feeling kind of good, especially when you're talking about some of the heat and the humidity that's been building a little bit as well. It's going to be even more humid tomorrow. Just showing you our averages up here on the top, but I want to show you the unofficial high for today, 28.4, which is the hot spot for Ontario. And in fact, you can have a look, beating the nation's capital by almost 10 degrees in terms of the temperature disparity that we're seeing. And of course, you have to look at what the temperatures are right now. 28 we're sitting at the moment, and Chatham-Kent sitting at 27. Factor in some of the humidity, and okay, this isn't that bad. I know we see a lot worse than this, but low 30s is how it's feeling, and then the breeze kind of wicks that off of you, makes you feel a little bit better. We have a quieter night on our hands right now. In Ontario, there's some active weather, but that's over towards the east around the Kingston area where there's a severe thunderstorm warning. Otherwise, it was busy last night a little bit further to the northeast of us, and we're seeing quieter conditions there tonight and quiet conditions for southwestern Ontario. I will just show you as we go towards tomorrow morning, there's some storminess but staying to the south of us, but towards midday, it does look like a little bit of this cloud cover might try and eke its way over towards Leamington. Certainly Detroit will get a little more cloud cover, but for Windsor, I think we'll be doing okay and a lot of sunshine through the day. It really looks like a nice day on Thursday. Friday starts out pretty nice as well, but then we'll have a front coming through, and so by the afternoon, not just some showers, but could have some active weather with some thunderstorms rolling through there, so that's for late Friday. Temperatures tonight, not like last night where we had a low of 21 degrees, 16 tonight, a little more comfortable if you don't have the air conditioning on or don't want to put it on. And for tomorrow afternoon, there you go, it's actually going to feel like 36 or warmer, so that's what I mean by the dew points going up. There's that active weather into Friday. More comfortable air moves in, though, for the weekend. It looks pretty good, doesn't it, really?
No, not bad. And that dip to coolness tonight will certainly feel a little bit better than last night. Thanks, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, coming up, we'll have a story about two people involved with the Ontario Hockey League and how COVID-19 has shifted some of their plans. So the owner of the Oshawa Generals of the Ontario Hockey League, his son plays for the Generals and is getting ready for the NHL draft, but everything's up in air because of COVID-19. Rocco Tullio and his son Tyler, they both live in Lakeshore. They spoke with Windsor Mornings' Tony Doucette about how they're dealing with the shutdown of organized hockey.
Tyler, I wonder, when was the last time you played in a real hockey game?
Couldn't tell you, really. It's been a while. Haven't been on the ice in a long time, but hopefully I can get on there soon.
How has preparing for the draft changed for you because of all of this?
It hasn't really changed much. Obviously, I think just working harder, putting that in my head that I want to go as high as I can. Just kind of giving that a little extra motivation for myself and kind of taking that throughout the summer. It's kind of giving me a little boost and a little fuel for myself, and I think it's been good so far.
What are you hearing from your agent?
Honestly, I haven't talked to him in a little bit, but he's kind of reached out to teams and said that they really like me and they're really interested, and they'll just really be reaching out to me in the next few weeks. But they also don't know what to expect at the draft, and even the upcoming season, they don't know what to expect. So it's kind of just a scramble right now.
Rocco, you're in a really unique place here, owner/dad. So what sort of advice have you been offering your son?
I've always told Ty, just, you got to go out and have fun. That's the most important, right? I mean, if it's not work if you're having fun. You got to love what you do. And he loves his craft. I just tell him, stay positive. It is what it is. You can only control the things that you can control. He can't control what, when the draft's going to happen and all that kind of stuff. He can control the things that are within his means and his power, and enjoy what's in front of him.
What about the future of the Oshawa Generals in the OHL? What sort of discussions are going on there?
Again, everything's in a holding pattern. We're really trying to see. It's really month to month to see what's going on. Obviously, we're not a league that we're a league that relies on marketing and bums in the seats heavily to survive. And the border has to. There's a lot of question marks in the air. When's the borders going to open? When are we going to get some normalcy back to our lives? And what it's going to look like. Obviously, we can't play in front of no fans. It just would never happen. Nobody can afford to do that. But I'm confident, and from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, there's a lot of brilliant people in this world, and I believe between this world and people putting their minds together, that we'll find a solution to this vaccine that will happen sooner rather than later. Where I think we're going to be able to have some fans. We may start the season maybe even a little bit late, but at the end of the day, I think we're going to be in a position where we will have a season. I think the NHL is obviously alluding to that also, and we'll follow what Hockey Canada in the lead of NHL.
Nice bit of optimism there from the owner. It's 6:29 p.m. and that is it for CBC Windsor News. Before we go, we want to leave you with another look at that bike ride by paramedics to honor their fallen. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can find us on social media too. If you go on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and just search CBC Windsor, our accounts will pop up. Thanks for watching. Make sure you and your family stay safe tonight.